Black and brown journalists are balancing their identity and their profession in this critical moment. So, how are they making it work? We'll talk about it next on Keep It Social. What's up, y'all? I'm Paris, and this is Keep It Social, the show that brings our timelines to life. I'm here with Terrence and today's guest to take a closer look at the stories that caught our attention and yours on social. What's up, Terrence? How you doing?
Paris, I'm doing as well as possible. I have to admit, I'm a little tired, a little fatigued, so I'm hoping you're doing, a little bit better than I am right now.
I'm empathize. I feel similarly, and I'm hanging in there. But I'll tell you, Terrence, that you're not alone. I'm not alone in feeling that fatigue because Black journalists are exhausted, especially at this time. I can attest to that, and Terrence, sounds like you can too, but that's also the main thesis behind an essay that Patrice Peck recently wrote for the New York Times. She writes that the nonstop reporting of Black suffering can take a toll on one's mental and emotional health. And that's absolutely the case in this moment. So Patrice joins us today from Los Angeles. Hi, Patrice. How are you?
Hey, I'm great, y'all. It's funny because it's such a habit of saying like, I'm good, I'm great, right? But then as soon as I say that these days, I'm like, whoa, wait, like I'm actually a million things right now. But I'm happy to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you. We are happy to have you and have this space to really talk about what really we're all kind of experiencing right now. So why don't you start by telling us about, you wrote this essay that was personal and really spoke to the time. I really appreciated it. So thank you. So why don't you tell us about what motivated you to write that?
Yeah, it's funny. I first had the idea for this essay in 2012, sort of in the wake of Trayvon Martin being shot and killed, and how that news story seemed to spark like a wave of very similar police killings of Black people. I don't know if that's because publications realized that these stories were trending on social media and therefore boosting their traffic. All I know is that it just felt like I got hit by a wave, and I was a Black, I'm always Black, but I was a journalism graduate student at the time. And so this was kind of like my first foray into professional journalism. I was interning at CNN's In America documentary unit. So that was like led by Soledad O'Brien, and they would have these really cool, insightful documentaries focusing on certain demographics. So yeah, I just remember being an intern there and thinking like, okay, so how are Black journalists expected to remain not objective, but how are we supposed to portray and assume objectivity when we are reporting on these things that directly and disproportionately impact our communities and our families for a lot of us? If we haven't directly been affected by police brutality, then we most definitely have a friend or a family member who has been. So it's not that, Black journalists can't be objective, because we most certainly can and are, but it made me question the matter of, does objectivity necessarily mean desensitivity, right? Or can we still be, exhausted and sad and frustrated and be still considered credible and trusted by our readers, but also by our newsrooms and our colleagues. So, here we are, fast forward to 2020. And like I said in my essay, it's as though nothing has changed. It's like a broken record. Just throughout the years, as both of you know also, this isn't new to Black people.
Patrice, I was thinking about something you said earlier, which was, we're how to be this idea of objectivity, right? Especially for Black journalists, and, you know, being tired and being hurt and all of these emotions that swell up when we see this happen over and over and over and over and over again, right? And I think the issue for me, you know, working in media, working in this space, is that I oftentimes don't want to say how I'm feeling, how I'm mourning, how this is affecting me, because I'm afraid that someone is going to use it to try to discredit my work, right?
Exactly.
Or to try to, oh, well, you know, this and this happened, so why can't you just push forward, right? Like, I feel like everyone understands experiences except for when it affects Black people, right? And so for me, it makes me super sensitive and super protective, honestly, to trust people enough to say, you know what, I'm having a really rough day. You know, for me earlier this week, I had to actually stop and take a breath because my anxiety levels had gotten so high that my chest was starting to tighten up, right? And I just, you know, I never want anyone to say, oh, you know, like I said earlier, this is not right for whatever reason, or, you know, you're not doing a good job, or X, Y, and Z. And so I think we're so used to people discrediting our work for frivolous reasons that sharing those kind of emotions is, you know, a stride in itself.
I mean, what you're saying, I mean, is really getting those voices to be better reflected in newsrooms. So how do we do that? How do we make them more diverse to get that nuance and that perspective?
What I feel is that newsrooms, publications, all of these spaces, whether they want to admit it or not, a lot of times they want you to cover Black things or bring a Black perspective, right? And I say that because internally, their support and their resources don't reflect what it means to be a Black or brown journalist or a marginalized journalist, or any of those matters, right? So we're like, oh yeah, we have this Black journalist, or we have these people who work for us and they're on the front, right? And so because of that, it's often difficult to bring that identity, to your earlier point, Paris, bring that identity into the professional space, right? Because for me, in previous spaces, I felt like, you know, there aren't really resources here to support me as a Black queer person, right? So I have to be very aware of how I maneuver this space. How I interact in this space is critical, because what I do, what I say can be perceived in a way that can affect my livelihood, truly. And so I think that's the disconnect for a lot of Black and brown people internally, is the fact that there aren't resources, there aren't things there to support them. And so including that identity outside of being like, you know, the Black reporter is difficult. I think it's really difficult.
Well, it's definitely something that we all have to manage, and I'll be thinking of both of you as the story moves forward, and I know that you're gonna do good work, and so I'll be rooting for you.
Thanks for having me on. Shout out to all the other Black journalists out there doing a lot of work that is most times, thankless, unpaid, invisible, but it's important. So let's, support one another.
Thank you for that, Patrice. Well, that's it for us. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our social channels, and let us know what you want to see on the show. We'll see you next time. And until then, what should they do, Terrence?
Keep it social.